Live from New York at the Chainalysis Links Conference, this is Public Key, and I'm your host, Ian Andrews. This is the second episode of a series that will air over the next month, and this series is brought to you by our friends at Deloitte, who are the official sponsor of Live from Links. Cybersecurity is perhaps the biggest threat to the crypto industry. It seems like there are very few days recently where there isn't news of a protocol hack, a smart contract vulnerability, or some new phishing scheme. And while the attackers are only getting more sophisticated, there are new and vulnerable users who are entering Web3 every day. Luckily, there's some really smart folks dedicated to building secure systems and protecting those users. In this episode, I'm joined by one of the good guys, Philip Martin, who is Chief Security Officer at Coinbase. Philip takes us back to the early days of Coinbase and how he and CEO Brian Armstrong prioritized security from the beginning and made it a differentiating feature of the exchange platform. Philip also shares his Rubber Ducky method to protect yourself from falling victim to financial scams. It sounds funny, but I am fully bought in. We also get into some of the cutting-edge innovation that Coinbase is driving, like the MPC tech behind their Coinbase Wallet product. And as you listen to this episode, we've just wrapped Links in New York, and if you weren't able to attend in person, I want you to book your plans for Links Amsterdam, which is happening May 9th and 10th. Registration is now open, and the link can be found in the show notes. On this episode, I'm joined by Philip Martin, Coinbase Chief Security Officer. Philip, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Chief Security Officer at Coinbase. That sounds like a gigantic role. What are you actually responsible for?
So I own cybersecurity, physical security, privacy, governance, risk and compliance for technology, and a couple other little areas, business continuity, disaster recovery, some other stuff like that.
I'm imagining you're a pretty busy guy.
Sometimes, but I also have a great team. I, of course, just came from the main stage doing a talk, and one of the questions that I was asked there was, how do you sleep at night? And my answer is, I sleep like a baby, because I have a great team of people who are focused on their areas, who understand the intent, who know how to execute. And so my day to day, I'm not generally in the trenches doing like tactically solving problems, or if I am, they're pretty significant problems. And so, yeah, it's a big job, but it's a big team.
I was recently having a conversation with our CEO, Michael Browninger. So I'm a relative newcomer to the crypto space, about 2 years in. He obviously was working on Bitcoin client code back in 2011. And so I will frequently, when something crazy happens in crypto, I'll go to him and be like, I need a little perspective, Michael. And last year was sort of the year of DeFi hacks. And we saw billions of dollars exfiltrated from the DeFi ecosystem. And I'm like, wow, this seems like such a threat to... And Michael's point back to me was like, well, there was once upon a time where that was happening to centralized exchanges.
Yep.
And I definitely haven't seen any headlines about Coinbase suffering a cyber attack. So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
But I imagine this didn't happen overnight. You've been there for a while. Talk about kind of the evolution of how you think about cyber defense and protecting all the assets of your customers. How's that evolved over time?
It's a great question. So I've been at Coinbase. It'll actually be 7 years next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been great to see both the space and the company itself evolve. Like the crazy thing to think about, right? When I joined Coinbase, we were Bitcoin only. Essentially a wallet with an exchange.
Yeah.
That's it. That was the entirety of the company. It's 100 people. And the great thing about it, though, is that starting from that foundation, even when I joined, right, when I talked to Brian, our CEO, he would tell stories about, the very early days of Coinbase, right, when it was like him and a few other people.
Yeah.
Seeing the attacks come into the site in real time. And really that experience left him with a deep appreciation for the security of the platform. And he has...
You couldn't ask for more as a chief security officer, as a CEO who
understands
how
viscerally understands and has that feeling of like the responsibility to protect what our customers have given us.
Yep.
And that really makes my job much easier. I say a lot that most of my peers, most like CISOs or CSOs out there, have the conversation, why security? A lot. And it's an important conversation to have. I almost never have to have that conversation. The question is not why security, it's how security. That's an important conversation too. What are the trade-offs? How do we balance equities? Right? But no one's questioning the foundation, the why we should invest in this thing.
Yeah.
And so really what that means is that the compounding interest on those investments over the last 7 years, really 10 years since the company was founded, really, really pays off. When you make the right decisions early, when you bolt on security to an existing product, it's sort of like you want to build a safe, right? So you buy a really great safe door and like install it. But then right over here, there's just a drywall wall, right? That like, if you get a good running start, you could probably run through. That's what bolted on security looks and feels like. Instead of doing it right from the beginning, from the foundation up, from pouring the concrete walls to the right kind of rebar, to the whole thing. And so that's what we've been able to do at Coinbase from the very, very beginning, is take the right approach to having an architecture that lends itself to being defended. And to do that with the very real specter of attacks in the space. Even if we wanted to forget about security, which we don't, we would be daily reminded that security breaches happen around the world on a regular basis, and we need to be mindful lest we become part of that list.
And the product hasn't stood still.
No.
This is like, you talk about this idea of, we started out with a concrete bunker, rebar reinforced walls, but you've added on to the house a couple times.
We have.
Like, I think about Coinbase Wallet, the latest generation. It's a pretty incredible implementation in terms of this multi-party computation for ease of use, I think, for the end user, but a layer of security that it doesn't trivialize the asset protection.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about how that came about. Like, how did your organization think about that new feature deployment? Because that's a big open attack surface area, I would have to imagine. Like, it extends outside of your bunker.
Sure. Maybe just to beat the bunker analogy to death a little bit here. The trick to expanding that product bunker is not that you build the bunker and then you build the house on top. It's that you build the bunker and then you build the tools to build the bunker. So future bunker expansion is easy, right? So you build the preformed wall slabs, you invest in the rebar tying tools, like you build your capability to execute within that same construct. And that's what Coinbase has done. So the MPC is a great example, where back in, I'm gonna call it 2018, we had just shipped a major update to our cold storage engine in the background, which is the same thing that powers Coinbase Custody. And we were very happy about that. But when we get happy about something, we want to ask what's next, right? Yeah. So we asked what's next? Like, what is the next evolution of private key storage in the space? And we were looking around and we started reading about multi-party computation, which at the time, it was out there, but it wasn't like really far out there. It wasn't nearly as common as it is today.
It was more in academic white papers.
It was academic white papers. And so I'll tell you, the moment we actually started looking at it seriously is I was at a conference called Real World Crypto, which just happened this year in Tokyo. I didn't get to go, unfortunately. And I saw a talk on multi-party computation and started thinking about its implications in our context, in the context of private key management. And it became very clear that like this was a very new technology, but something that we needed to learn a lot about. This goes back to building the tools to build the bunker. Right. So we went on probably an 18-month odyssey within security, trying to figure out, okay, this seems interesting, but like more about it. What are its applications? What are its downsides? What are the problems? What are the gotchas? And fast forward a few years from there, I think it was late 2020, we acquired Unbound, a company in Israel specializing in computation technology, and really accelerated multi-party computation efforts as a product within Coinbase into DApp Wallet, which was the first place we rolled it out at a public-facing sense. And I think you're going to see multi-party computation in more places, both behind the scenes and in those user-facing roles, because, exactly what you said, it is a technology that can be used to simplify the problem for consumers.
It's awesome to see that. One of the things that you touch on consumers, and I think one of the biggest challenges right now in crypto is the amount of kind of scam and phishing activity that is happening across the ecosystem. Like my own personal experience, I look at my Twitter timeline and I get tagged in 50 a day tweets, fake airdrop, and they're trying to use me with a few thousand followers to promote their thing. They're not very good at Twitter, I guess, why they're tagging me on these things.
It's a numbers game, man. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, I guess so. But even that low level of like not sophisticated scam activity seems to be pervasive. And so Coinbase, again, not getting hacked directly, but I would imagine Coinbase consumers off platform are constantly being targeted. How do you think about that as CISO? Like, are you extending all the way out to the customer perimeter? Because that, I think, implies like a lot of infrastructure you can't control or design or select, right? It's like, it's the Wild West of my iPhone environment.
So yes, we have a team within security called Trust and Safety. That is sort of what it says in the box, is focused on that consumer trust and safety bit. And there's a bunch to unpack in what you're saying. Well, I'll just pick on a few things in particular. One is Scams come and go. Scammers are highly innovative, and they have been for thousands of years, right? Yeah. Since value was transferred among humans, I'm going to guess. The first chicken changed hands, and then a scammer showed up. is like, I'm going to guess that was about the sequence of events, right?
Yeah.
They've shown to be durably innovative over the years, over the centuries. And so the individual scams, right, they come and go. We are really focused on is how do we make consumers more resistant to scams written? We have to, of course, engage with the scam of the day, which today is, of course, pig butchering.
Yep.
But it's more about how do we give consumers, not just Coinbase consumers, like really consumers writ large, the skills and abilities to exist safely in this online world, the key element of this online world is velocity, right? Things happen fast on the internet. We all learned growing up. When we go on vacation, put your lights on a timer. Stop the newspaper delivery. We all learned, don't walk down a dark alley. Don't count your money in public, right? We learned all these skills to be safe in the physical world. No one at my kitchen table, I'm going to bet your kitchen table too, told me about password safety, about two-factor authentication use, about scam resistance online. We just didn't learn these things.
I have 3 young kids, and I'm trying to explain those concepts to them, and it's not legal.
You know what? Neither did the physical stuff the first time you heard it, right? It's a repetition game. And so you're doing the right thing, and I hope people are doing more and more of this, is giving people those skills and abilities. But the reality is, right now, what we have is a whole ecosystem of internet users who just have not learned the same skill sets that as users of crypto, you and I take a little bit for granted now because we've learned it through hard experience, either ours or those we've seen.
Yeah.
My mission then on the trust and safety side is how do we help those people build those skills so that they can be safe consumers of not just cryptocurrency, but an increasingly online world. Because without them, people are going to fall prey to scams that move like that on the internet.
You mentioned pig butchering.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple guests on the talk on that topic in the past. We had Alistair McCready, who's the editor for Southeast Asia for Vice News. And he's done some incredible investigative reporting into the industrial scale operation behind these scams.
Yeah.
More recently, we had 2 district attorneys, Alona Katz from Manhattan and Aaron West from Santa Clara County, who were on the front lines of victims and doing some amazing work to try and help people recover funds and shut some of this down. When you think about pig butchering in the context of all the threats that you're dealing with, where does that sit today, and how are you trying to tackle that?
So pig butchering is an interesting problem. The reason it is interesting is because it's a multi-platform problem.
Interrupting for one moment before Philip jumps in with his perspective on pig butchering, I wanted us to listen to a clip from his main stage talk at Lynx where he explains the scammer's modus operandi.
I pay a lot of attention to how our attackers evolve in general. This is a very trite saying, right? But no one's going to teach you like your attackers will. No one will show you where you need to grow and develop and do better as well or as thoroughly as an attacker. And so I pay a lot of attention to how are attackers moving, how are they evolving, how are they growing. In particular, attackers are like anyone else who innovates, right? They try a bunch of stuff. A lot of it fails. A lot of it's not good, goes away, and they'll double down on what works. And so when we see things like pig butchering become more widespread in general, we sit up and pay attention and ask ourselves, what can we do?
Wow. You are hearing from somebody who has clearly been dealing with crypto-related scams since the early days of Coinbase over a decade ago. And now, back to the podcast.
So what does Coinbase see when a pig butchering scam occurs? Well, we see the very end of it. We see a person sign up or log into their account and move money. Now, maybe that money is going to a scam address that we can tag and we can stop the transaction, but maybe it's going to a brand new address that we've never seen before. That looks like everyone else doing their day-to-day thing because we see the very end slice of it. Now, you go to the very beginning. What does Match.com see or Tinder, where all these initial interactions are happening?
Yeah.
Well, they see 2 people matching and taking a conversation to a third platform, or WhatsApp, or Telegram, or whatever. There's nothing necessarily suspicious about that.
Very normal behavior there too.
Right? And then on in the middle, what do we see? Well, WhatsApp doesn't see anything. But maybe they see a certain phone number is associated with a pig butchering scams reported by somebody. Okay, they can play whack-a-mole with those, but that's not going to get you very far very fast. And so each piece of the puzzle in isolation is very difficult for any of these platforms to action because the activity looks relatively normal. It's only when you start stitching it together that you get the picture of the scam. And so I think that's what makes this particularly difficult for any one platform to solve, is that none of us are seeing, or that none of us that can see it, WhatsApp can't introspect that or Signal, whatever.
Yeah.
None of us that can see it are seeing enough of it to durably say pig butchering consistently every single time. And so if it's a multi-platform problem, it's a multi-platform solution. The future of working against pig butchering is, number one, working with law enforcement that does have the remit to cross platforms in this way, right? They have the ability to open investigations, to subpoena data, to really put the picture together. That's very, very important here. But also to make sure that each platform is thinking hard about like, okay, great, we don't have the full picture, but what can we see? What indications can we come up with? Are there certain ways that these things, the transactions work, or certain behavioral differences that we can tease out here, that we can even make the problem 1% better? I think that's an important piece here.
It seems like such an important problem to solve. I mean, it's hard to get a really great estimate on the scale of these operations because, like you said, it's this multi-platform problem. You're not seeing all the funds flow consistently through one set of addresses. But a number of people have suggested to me this is billions of dollars that is flowing out of victims' wallets into Myanmar, Laos, which is a staggering amount of money.
The specific details of pig butchering, right, are almost immaterial because pig butchering is just a confidence scam. It's a specific implementation of a confidence scam.
That's right.
Even if we shut it down, there'll be another confidence scam that shows up later. The thing we have to fix, in addition to investing in how do we warn people, how do we spot the signs, how do we make it harder, how do we fix the geopolitics of it, right? There's a bunch of stuff to fix. But if we fix all that, all we're doing is telling the attackers, okay, that scam's done, next one. So the ultimate fix here is educated consumers. So I said something on the main stage, I'm going to repeat it here. It's the most useful suggestion I have to get to an educated consumer, and it is this. So sometimes you're talking to somebody, maybe it's parents, maybe it's friends, whatever, and you want to tell them how to be careful online, how to not get scammed. You're gonna give them a bunch of specific advice. Maybe they're listening, maybe they're not, maybe they're paying attention, maybe they don't care, or maybe the scammer is going to overcome those challenges. What you need to give them though is you need to give them a rubber ducky. Tell them when you're about to make a financial decision, what I want you to do is take the rubber ducky, put it on your desk, stare that rubber ducky straight in the eyes, and explain what you're about to do out loud to that rubber ducky. If you feel like that rubber ducky is judging you, the thing you're about to do is probably not what you should be doing, and you need to call somebody and talk to them.
That's incredible. I love this advice.
So this comes from this concept in computer science called rubber ducky debugging, right? Which is very similar, right? You're solving a problem, it's just not working, and you're like, because you're so involved in it, right? What the rubber ducky does is it takes you out of the problem a little bit, right? And you have to think about what you're doing. You're out of the urgency, which is what scammers create. You're out of the urgency, you explain the problem, and then frequently that gives you the perspective to see the thing for what it is, which is really what we want to do. We want them, the potential victim, to take a step back, see the situation for what it is.
Right.
Oh, someone that randomly messaged me out of the blue is asking that I send this money to this place to do this thing I've never heard of, but that doesn't sound right. That's the best suggestion I have.
That's amazing. You mentioned, you called the Coinbase Wallet earlier, the DApp wallet.
So there's two different products, just to be clear.
Yeah.
So the Coinbase Wallet, right, is literally the Coinbase Wallet. You download that as a separate app. DApp Wallet is actually part of the Coinbase retail app, right? And so DApp Wallet uses MPC behind the scenes to deliver part of the service for you, specifically with interfacing with apps.
Thank you for clarifying. So where I was going with this was, you're obviously recognizing the interest of your customers to move crypto from within the Coinbase custody structure off to DeFi. DeFi has been one of the biggest growing areas of crypto, certainly, and finance overall in the last couple of years. I have to imagine a security professional that terrifies you. Like DeFi feels like the Wild West in terms of the hacks that occur and smart contract vulnerabilities, infrastructure risks, particularly you start thinking about bridging assets across ecosystems. Any advice for consumers who are going down that path, like in terms of how they're approaching that? So less the confidence scam, but more the how do I know this lending, borrowing protocol or this DEX that I'm going to go use is actually safe before I connect my wallet and transmit some funds?
That's a great question, and unfortunately also an unanswerable question, because I don't. Without doing a lot of work up front, right? Without actually going and looking at the code and spending a considerable amount of time understanding the interactions and the various pieces and then keeping up with that after the fact and future updates. I don't expect anyone to understand that. But here's the interesting thing. This question, I think, hits a little bit different post sort of SVB and signature. But like, couldn't you ask the same question about a bank? But the reality is we don't ask the questions of banks. So why not? Maybe the answer is we should more. But the reason we don't is because there's this history of regulators building regulations, of banks complying with them, and then like banks that operate not losing consumer funds or when at risk being backstopped by FDIC. And so we don't ask the question about like, okay, well, how is this bank investing? What is their hold to maturity versus available for sale? What does the mix look like? And I think the reason we ask this about DeFi, not about a bank, is number one, there are more risks in DeFi today. But I think we are moving toward a world of more standards where we can put faith in standards and the application of those standards. And that's how we're truly going to get consumers to a place where they can make reasonable choices about where their funds should go. Now, very tactically, you're a consumer, you have a choice between 3 different loan DeFi protocols, and you want to use one of them. Which one do you use? I think what I would do, if it's me wanting to do this, is I would look at some of the basic signs I would look at for any business. I would look at, well, what's their history? How long have they been around? How much money has moved through it historically? If it was going to be a rug pull, would they have already pulled? What do I know about the founding team? Are they anonymous? Are they not anonymous? Are they in a high rule of law country so they can expect consequences if they do something wrong? The same sort of stuff I might do for any business. I would do for a DeFi protocol, like if we're into like the very tactical.
No, I think that's great advice. Like you can reputation vet. They'll just peep into the thing that your friend told you about and claim he made a ton of money.
Or if you do so, right? Like, look, I'm a security guy, so like I'm going to come with a particular view on the world. But like my view on the world is it's all risk, not in a bad way. Not like everything is risky. It's all risk, right?
Yeah.
And so, how much risk can you afford to take with that, thing that your friend told you about? Yeah, 5, 10, $50 in there, sure, no problem, right? It's not going to hurt much if I lose it. 5,000, 50,000. 500,000.
I'm going to be very sad.
I'm going to be very sad, right? And so my diligence level should approach my sadness level.
Yeah.
Like the potential sadness, potential diligence, like that should be on the same approximate level.
Let's end on a high note.
Yeah.
So as you look forward in the future, as far as you can see into the crypto crystal ball, what gets you really excited rather than what are you worried about? I'm sure you get the worried about question from everybody.
Totally.
Security guy. But what are you excited about?
I'm excited about the fact that I have no idea what's coming. Go back to early days of the internet. The critique at the time was like, this is just a catalog but on a computer. So like, why would I do this? And they were right. That's what it was. In high school, ran a small business building websites. And I will tell you, I built catalogs on the internet. It was boring. So could I, high schooler Philip, back in the day, predicted where no, of course not. Not even a little bit. I'm sure there are very smart people who could have and probably did do so at the time. I don't know what's coming in cryptocurrency and blockchain over the next, call it 5-10 years, but I'm excited for what's going to be.
Well, that's a great place to end. Philip, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey there, thanks for listening to a special Live from Links episode of Public Key. This is the second episode of a series that will air over the next month, and that series is brought to you by our friends at Deloitte, the official sponsor of Live from Links. After listening to such a powerful episode from Links NYC, you are probably wondering what else you missed at this historic event. Don't worry, the Chainalysis team has compiled the best snippets from regulators, law enforcement, journalists, and industry executives in our recent blog post titled Lessons from Links. In it, we highlight how to safely grow the crypto industry while still fostering innovation. If you want to know how this ecosystem will thrive while providing a safe environment for consumers, head to the show notes, find the link to the blog, and enjoy the read.